Lakes Honda City Studios. And as we're on the road, I want to thank Great Lakes Honda City for all that they do in my 2025 CRV. With that being said, the American Athletic Conference Commissioner Tim Pernetti is here with me today to speak on the status of the American Athletic Conference as we step forward here into the spring. Tim, how are you?
Good, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And to look at, I know everything that Penny Hardaway's done with Memphis and the work that he's done with that program, especially having a team full of transfers. He talked with me about looking for character and not just talent. They made it to the NCAA tournament, but as I've spoken about in the past, and I think is fair now as well, having more than one spot in the NCAA tournament is important. So just what you can say to looking at that portfolio of the American, and if you felt like there should have been more maybe at-large opportunity this year.
Well, there's certain things you control and there's certain things you don't control. I give Penny and the entire Memphis program a lot of credit for the year that they had because what they did was they took care of business in the league and went 16-2, and they really scheduled aggressively outside the conference and they performed very well. It's like it's one thing to schedule aggressively outside of conference, but you have to perform in those games too. And Memphis did a great job. I think they set an example across the entire conference for how to attack it when you have a really talented team. Certainly I was very happy for them make the NCAA tournament. Disappointed, that they weren't able to go a little bit deeper, but that's the way it goes in March, right? You never know what's going to happen. But as a league overall, I don't accept that we're a one bid league because we're not. But having said that, there are certain things that I think we control that we have to work a little harder on. And one of them is scheduling. There is scheduling guidance and policy in this conference about sort of like steering schools in the right direction. Like, here's a way to schedule that gives you the ability to be in position to be an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. And we're just not meeting that guidance in a lot of areas. So we're going to spend the offseason trying to tighten that up and then also work with some people outside the conference to look at the future of basketball in the American, because we've got great coaches, great brands, a lot of talent, which is constantly under the radar of everybody else in college basketball during transfer portal time. So we've got potential there, but we need to unleash it a little bit and take some more risk in how we schedule.
And when you spoke about that, it comes down to scheduling and making sure that non-conference schedule is very strong. To have that conversation, like you said, not only do you schedule, but you have to perform. We saw that Memphis did against UConn and Michigan State and the like. So when you are having this conversation with chancellors and presidents, athletic directors and whatnot, how involved does the American want to be with kind of putting these pieces together? Is it about forming relationships with conferences as a whole and say, hey, we want to do certain challenges every year? What do you look at conference-wide that could be effective in making sure that you are having this overlapping in non-conference with certain conferences? Does it come down to having an every year challenge, so to speak, or mini tournaments and whatnot?
Yeah, so the answer is we want to be as involved as we possibly can be. I know that in basketball is unlike football, right? Where, in football, I think athletic departments really run the point on scheduling. And in basketball, I think the coaches are really running the point on scheduling. But what I do know about trying to solve these things is we can't count on or tell the schools it's their problem, right? Like it's our collective challenge to solve. So we've been out there for months talking to other conferences about scheduling relationships. Whether it's sort of like, hey, who do you have? Who do we have? How do we set up, some more home and home series to make it higher level? We're bringing the inventory up, which is good for all of our television partners. And we're helping our schools get out of the business of just buying games wherever they can buy games. Because anybody that's got access to, cash to buy games, I think in basketball especially, would like to put that money towards other things right now, including the talent. So we're very, very involved in it. Myself and Carl Hicks and Brianna Gladney at our basketball staff are talking to a variety of conferences about trying to set these things up for the future and create some, longer term value in the inventory.
And when you talk about longer term value in the inventory, in the American in and of itself, you and I kind of do a litmus test of where things are at the time. We spoke about when you first came into the conference. We spoke during football season. Now, as we're in the tail end of basketball season, what can you say to where the American is at right now? And as we head into the spring, as you continue to grow in this role as the commissioner of this conference, what are some of those pillars that you're leaning on right now? And then what is that focus? Because I know that as you spend time within the conference, different things are going to happen at different times. So what's the pillars to lean on? And then the areas of focus?
Well, one from day one has always been innovation. And we're out there trying to figure out what are some of the things that haven't been done in the business where we can be a first mover. And, the most recent news we had about creating a floor on house and creating a minimum investment level across the conference. So all of our institutions are stepping forward and making a significant investment in revenue sharing should the house settlement get approved. It's a major step in the evolution and the history of this conference. And then beyond that, 9 months ago, I talked about some things like we should talk to private capital partners in college sports. And then I think I was a lonely voice. And now 9 months later, everybody's running a process and looking at private capital. I think that's really encouraging because the industry is embracing innovation. So, innovation will always be one. Unity is going to be another. At a time like this, it's very challenging for any commissioner to create sort of ironclad unity in any conference. You see what's going on everywhere. And I think brands are always looking at where the business is headed, what the next opportunities are, being able to be in position to get more access, all of those things. But a way to do it is just to be present, be visible, be accessible. And we've developed really good relationships in the room with our membership. And like I could tell you that minimum investment thing was not an easy thing to get through and get over the line. But when we got to the end of it and had everybody on board with the support, I think it was a great sign that we have a unified group that's trying to break glass and do things differently.
And when you look at that house settlement that's supposed to be coming up here in early April, if everything does get approved and you talk about minimal investment, what is the American prepared to do?
Well, not minimal, it's minimum, right? Which
Minimum,
means you can invest way beyond that if you have the ability to do that. But we've set the table for that already by getting this over the line. And it's innovative. And as you saw about the way it played out, in the media and collegiate athletics, is something that is different. And now suddenly many conferences are coming out saying, yeah, we may look at that too. And I think that's an encouraging, form of flattery. So nobody can predict what's going to happen, with house, and nobody can predict what this thing's going to look like in 5 years. All we do know is we know what this agreement and this settlement says and what it's going to do. So we're positioning ourselves to be ready to capitalize on it. And I think all of our institutions have done a really good job being ready for it.
And as those pieces come together and as these schools are being asked to utilize more funds, have more resources and whatnot, in your world of the American, to create that revenue and create that revenue sharing as schools have more put on them. Obviously, the American wants to grow and evolve. You talked about capital partnerships. I remember being at football media day at the AAC kickoff and some things that you were looking to and forming bonds and doing different things in that respect. Like you said, that you felt like you were kind of the lone horse out there saying some of those things. Where are those partnerships in your mind? Do you feel like there's been an opening for corporate partnerships for the American, and there's been more of an evolution in that respect to say to the schools, if you're spending more money, don't worry, because on the other end, we as the American have started to form these bonds?
Yeah, they all know that, and we update them on a regular basis on all the commercial activity. And going back to our football championship game, which we brought USAA in on as a title sponsor, it was a unique opportunity. They're in affiliation with Army. Army played in the game. I think we have more assets in this conference than people have taken out to the market. And as it relates to conference naming rights and jersey patches and creating events and other things, like we're making great progress on every front. A little early to call where some of these are going to land, but they're going to land. And the opportunities that we have out there as a conference are really exciting right now, including in private capital. So there's a lot of irons in the fire, but it's our responsibility. Like if everybody has to invest more, the conference as a whole needs to come up with more resources for all of its members.
And, you've been doing a lot of things with fans when it comes to different events. And of course, with college football, as well as with college basketball, these fan-centric events to try and make it more than simply just the game itself or the games themselves. Just to speak to that side of it, how you feel like it's gone with the fans to involve them in so many different pieces of your seasons.
Well, the conference only controls certain things that you can do that with, right? Like a lot of the fan access and fan involvement's done at the local level with institutions, but certainly what we did around our championships and also what we did around our media days. Like when I told the staff we were opening media days up to fans, they looked at me like I was crazy. And at the same time, I said to myself, like, fans are the lifeblood of what we do, and they're the lifeblood of any university. From the tickets they buy to the apparel they buy to the support they provide to the investment that they make. Like college sports as a fan is not an insignificant investment anymore. And what you know about fans is they love access, right? So this thing that we have is college sports should continue to be more accessible than it currently is. I think sometimes, depending on the events you attend, it feels a little bit more like pro sports, but it should be more accessible. And if it is more accessible, then it gives fans a better experience. And that's really what we're in the business of, is experience.
And you've been in the room, you've had a seat at the table as commissioner of the American Athletic Conference. Do you feel like that voice is being heard when all of these conferences are sitting together? Do you feel that the American has a place and that there has been maybe an evolution of that? Because I know how much Mike worked for in a decade. I know you came in with a lot of thoughts and a lot of different things that you wanted to do and a lot of things that you're passionate about that I would love to see come to fruition. So when you are at that table, how have they received you when there is that multi-conference conversation?
Really good. I think that everybody reports on these CFP meetings and commissioners meetings. And I do think, with due respect to what you do, I think sometimes the media are out to try to point out the challenges and point out the negatives. But what I know about that room, and I had all the relationships prior to being in this job, just from being in the space, is you got a lot of people in there that have a really hard job that care deeply about collegiate athletics. And I think that's table stakes, right? If you got people in there just trying to run a business and don't care about collegiate athletics, then you have a disconnect. But I don't see a disconnect in everybody's mission and what they're trying to get done. Are there differences of opinion on how to approach certain things? Absolutely. Is that healthy? Absolutely. So I feel like Mike Oresco set the table really, really well. And the American already had a voice in that room. So for me, it was just a matter of sort of picking up, the baton and running with it, and taking it from Mike. But overall, it's been really good. I feel like we have a voice. We have things to say. We have a unique point of view, and it's well received all the time.
And as a note, before I let you go, when you look at kind of what the next step is and the next piece is, as we're here coming out of winter into the spring, where is your focus right now with the American?
Well, the focus is on the future. There's so many things that we have on the front burner right now that are on the commercial business side. Like I talked about, we're moving our basketball tournament starting next year, and we're in the final phase of trying to figure out what makes the most sense there. We're also talking about the format of our basketball tournament. Like, there's a lot of big decisions that we have to make. And then certainly we'll be spending a lot more time with our media partners at ESPN and trying to figure out a way that we can continue to bring them more value and we can maximize the potential of that relationship, because it's a great relationship. It brings us really broad-based linear exposure that gives us an edge over the rest of our so-called peers. So, there's a lot of work to do, but it's all about, looking forward. Like, we're looking out through the windshield right now. We're not spending a whole lot of time looking in the rear view about what happened.
And beyond basketball and football, I do want to make a note here to the other sports that make up the American Athletic Conference that don't always get as much media fanfare and whatnot. Just what you could say to that effect, that the American, how strong it is as a whole, and even beyond basketball and football, some of those pieces that you really feel like have been great. Because I know there's been great moves with baseball in certain places. There's different elements to talk about when it comes to different sports of this conference. So some of that pride that you have as we step into the spring.
Yeah, it's a deep, unpredictable conference, which makes it a fun place. And, in the fall, you saw some of this with men's and women's soccer, and you saw
Yeah.
how those seasons played out. And I got to witness East Carolina's golden goal in overtime against Memphis at the women's championship and hand out the trophy. It's just deep and unpredictable. And I think that makes it fun. Like, it's sports is like the last unscripted drama in the world, right? So predetermining outcomes and things like that don't make any sense. Like, it's not what people love about college sports. Like right now, the NCAA tournament is not what people love about the tournament. Like, they love the unpredictability of it. So, we've seen that in the fall. We've got it going on in women's lacrosse now, and baseball, and we've got nationally ranked teams in softball. Like, this league has depth and potential beyond, I think, what people know. It's our job as a conference to kind of bring that out of the shadows and make sure people understand that. But I was up in North Texas this morning presenting an award to a young lady who's on the swim and dive team. I make a point of, every time I'm on campus, try to interact with student athletes in different sports, because they don't work less hard than kids that play the sports that get all the television exposure, and they care just as much about their experience being great. And it's our responsibility to make sure we deliver on that.
That come from Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference. And Tim, I got to ask you this as the exclamation point here. Is there a hashtag that we're leaning on right now? We've seen the American way. Is there something else, or is that what we're sticking with?
I was sticking with that for now, and that was kind of an organic deal. Like, I think people sometimes look at these things and say, all right, probably did a brand study, probably hired an agency, probably whatever. That one just kind of came out of our heads one day. And we thought, like, let's think bigger picture about what we stand for as a brand and who we represent. And, I selfishly think we have the best word on the planet in our conference name, American. So we're making hay with that. But as we think about the future and what this brand is, like, this brand will migrate towards being called the American Conference. And, there'll be some things that are coming down the pike that will reinforce what the brand is and what it stands for. And we're excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited for a lot of things coming up that you have made mention to and alluded to. And as always, Tim, from when you took the job, that I appreciate the fact that you're here, and I appreciate the work that you're doing with a conference that I have respected from day zero. So thank you for the work that you and your entire team are doing. And as always, I appreciate you taking a few minutes with me.
Hey, you're an OG to the American Athletic Conference, right? So we're always going to have time for Dan Tortora, and we always appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a good day and stay safe. Okay.
All right. You too. Take care, Dan.